love that intro. It makes you
I
bop your
do.
head.
I do. I was thinking to myself, that's excellent. I love that.
Well, welcome everyone to Creative Inc., another wonderful episode. I am your host, Karina Gantus, and today we're talking to Teri M Brown. Welcome to the show, Teri.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, we've known each other for quite some time now,
Yeah, we
and
have.
you've been on my podcast, my radio show, first time on the TV show.
That's true.
And I want people to know what an amazing author you are and how amazing your books are. So let's start from the beginning. We
Okay.
met when you were a debut author with your first release, which was
hmm
called Sunflowers Beneath the Snow. Now, there's something very, very special about this book, and I think why it went as high up in the charts, the sales, the reviews, everything, why this book made it compared to thousands of other books
Right.
there that don't. So why don't you explain that, Teri?
So, yes, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow is a story about three Ukrainian women. So, three generations of Ukrainian women. The crazy thing about this book is that it came out 2 weeks before the current Ukrainian crisis. So, unbeknownst to me, that Russia was amassing forces, I'm out writing a book, and it took, years of getting it written, and then finally getting it published and all of the things. And just when it is supposed to be released, Russia decides that it's going to invade Ukraine. So 2 weeks after my release, Russia invaded Ukraine, and my book immediately became relevant, right?
Totally.
But it's not. I actually, my next book is a World War II, and I believe it is better written because it's my second. I had more, I knew more, I understood more, became better at my craft. But it would have been a very hard book as a first book because it would have been just another World War II historical fiction. Whereas Sunflowers Beneath the Snow was a book that was, I told people it was historical fiction ripped from the headlines. You know, it
Perfect. Oh my gosh, yeah.
you know,
That
it was it
tagline
was
is
it was
perfect.
about the past, yet it pretty much reflected
What was
exactly what was happening
exactly what was
again.
happening. That's what was um, perfect timing for you with the book. Um, but what you were writing about, the life that people were going through in Ukraine in your book, people were actually going through that in real life. And we
Yes.
saw that on the TV, we heard that in the news. And to read that book and put yourself in their shoes, like everyone does when you read a book, you put yourself in that character's shoes. But what made it more intense was, okay, you're in that character's shoes, but this is real life.
Really
This is
happening. Right.
really happening. This is really going on. And and that was just like it was just an amazing coincidence, but everything happens for a reason, and that book came out for the right reason. And I think having that second book, the World War II one, Enemy Like Me, you had your readers.
Yes. Yes. And if I had done it the other way around, imagine if World War II had come out first, it would have been very hard to distinguish myself in any way with just
Mm,
another World War II book. And then when I would have wanted to bring out Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, it would have looked like I was trying to capitalize on this horrible war, when that had
bingo.
never been the intent, right? In fact, I already had that problem where some people felt that that's what I was doing, and I would say, but my book, it came out first of all before the war, and I it was in the process of coming out long before the war. You know what I
Mm,
mean? It wasn't like I realized a war was coming and I quickly wrote a book and threw it out there to
yeah,
the public.
yeah. I mean,
That's not the way
AI
it
could do
works.
that, but that's
Right.
not the way it
That's
works.
not the way it works. And so it would have been horrific. Sunflowers Beneath the Snow would have been a story that never got to be told, or at least for years, because
Yeah.
it would have looked like I was trying to capitalize on a horrible situation in the Ukraine. And instead, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow got to educate people on a horrible situation happening in Ukraine as opposed to capitalize on it.
Yes.
That the timing was, there's never a good time for war. I'm so sorry that this happened. But if it was going to happen, when my book came out was the perfect time for it to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So
Don't discredit Enemy Like Me.
oh
Maybe
no
you
no
wouldn't have been, no, maybe you wouldn't have been as best-selling popular author as you are now because of Sunflowers. But Enemy Like Me isn't just a normal World War II
no,
romance book or
that's
anything.
true.
There's
It's
something
just
very special about this one as well. The
I
way
think that,
you've done the story.
yeah, I think that for me though, as a new author who didn't understand marketing, who didn't know how to put myself out there, I would have been really hard pressed to figure out how to explain how this book was different than any other book out there.
Yeah,
Okay. After a year of promoting Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, when An Enemy Like Me came out, I knew what to say to make sure that people understood it wasn't just another World War II book. But I
exactly.
wouldn't have known how to do that either. So I
Yeah,
just feel like the way they came out was exactly what needed to happen for the
for many,
world
many
and
reasons.
for
Yeah,
me
yeah.
as an author who's finally kind of understanding the whole marketing scene and what needs to be done and how to do it. I didn't have any clue.
It's like when we write our first book. I mean, I'm not saying your book because your first book is amazing, but most of us authors that write our first book, it is rubbish and should never even be published.
Oh, well, so my
But
first
they,
manuscripts are that way. Yeah,
right, there you go.
yeah.
Okay, so you've been
I
there.
have them in a drawer.
Perfect. And some people make the mistake of publishing, rushing and getting them
Yeah.
published. Um, as you go on, the more books you write, the more you're learning about editor through your editing. For your editor, you're learning about editing.
Yes.
The more you're learning about the skills of writing, the more your voice comes out, the more you grow as a writer. And that's the same when it comes to marketing,
Yes.
because you start off not knowing nothing.
Right. Right. You're just standing there
And you
going,
try this, you try that, you throw this at the wall, you throw that at
yeah.
the wall and see what sticks. So that when you release your next book, you know now what works and what doesn't.
Right. And then you can start from that position and then throw more things at the wall. But at least now you have a base to stand on. Whereas
Yeah.
with Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, I honestly, I had no idea what I was doing. None, zero. Thankfully, because of the topic, people were interested enough to take me on despite the fact that I knew nothing and knew no one and had no following. And, the topic helped me. And then once people met me and recognized, oh, okay, so like having her on a podcast isn't a bad thing because she can carry her own and etc. Then when I say, hey, I have another book, people are like, oh, great, come on back. You know,
Mm.
it would have been harder the other way around because I was a complete unknown.
You were an unknown, but you weren't a novice. I was really surprised as a debut author that you had your marketing plan. You knew exactly what you were doing. You had these podcasts and radio shows all lined up. Debut authors do not do that. They
No, but
don't
see,
think of it as a
I
business.
didn't. No, when Sunflowers came out, I hadn't done anything. When I met you was like 2 months later, and I had pulled all this stuff together out of nowhere because I didn't know what I was doing. When Sunflowers came out, I sat in front of the computer and waited for it to sell. I had no clue. And then I realized very quickly, uh-oh, you've done this wrong. You're supposed to be marketing. And I listened to some guy who did a podcast on book marketing, and I took copious notes and I just started doing the things that he said. And I recognized very quickly that being on a podcast is good for me. I don't know that it's good for every author, but it's good for me because I enjoy talking. I enjoy the interaction. I enjoy being part of that kind of conversation. And it's good for me. And once
Yeah,
I realized that this is good for me, I just reached out to every podcast host available. Like if you have a podcast and there was any way that I could contort myself to fit into what you needed for a guest, I've contacted you.
yeah.
And I didn't worry that a lot of people said no. I said, "Fine, you don't want me, that's fine. There are other people." And I just would keep going until I had someone that would say yes, and then I would keep going, and I just keep going. And
There are so many people out there that can help you if you reach out. There are
right.
people, peers that have done it, been there, done it, know the system. And like you said, you took that course or webinar, masterclass, whatever it was, and you learned from
Yeah.
somebody. And again, there's authors that just don't do that. They don't think about a proper launch. They don't think about their marketing. And so their launch comes out, the book comes out, no sales, and they
Nothing.
wonder
Right.
why.
Why? And the why is because there are a bazillion books out there.
Oh my gosh,
And how is anyone gonna
thousands
yeah, and
every
how is
day.
anyone gonna find yours by accident?
Yeah.
To accidentally say, "I wonder if there's any books on Ukraine in the 1970s." I think I'm gonna Google that. I mean, it's
Yeah, who would do that?
right,
Yeah.
right. I mean,
Yeah.
people don't do that. That's not how they find books. How do you find a book? Typically, you find a book because a friend said, "Hey, have you read such and so? It's a really
Word
good
of
one."
mouth
Or
of
or
a
you watched a podcast and you said, "Normally I like the books that this person recommends. I think maybe I'll look at that one," or whatever it is, but you don't do it because you were on Amazon Googling books,
no.
right? That's
But
not
you
how it
could see a
happens.
post of one of your books on
Right.
social media, the cover gets or the tagline gets you
Something.
stop, you read, you decide to buy it or not.
But they're not going to just accidentally happen upon your
No.
book.
That's like someone knocking on your door and saying, "Hey, guess what? You won the lottery."
Right.
"How have
I
you won
don't
the
even
lottery?"
play. Yeah.
Don't even
Yeah.
play.
Yeah. Oh
Alright,
no. How'd that
so
happen?
we've talked a little bit about sunflowers. People know what's going on there, and I've said how special and unique Enemy Like Me is. So why don't you quickly tell us a quick synopsis of what's
Okay.
happening with that book?
Okay. So the main character, he's a soldier. He is a first generation German American. He he's in America. His parents are German. He speaks German. He's grown up in a German community. He meets a woman who he believes is completely out of his league. They fall in love anyway. They marry. They have a child. He's on his way to his happily ever after. World War II strikes. Um, and so for him, he's got to make some pretty incredibly difficult decisions. He eventually decides. Okay, so he thought that he was going to live as happily ever after, and instead World War II hits. He decides he's going to fight in the war, but he thinks he's going to fight the Japanese, which is something that he really feels he can get behind. He ends up in Germany and realizes he's more like the enemy than he is different from the enemy. So this book kind of looks at war from his point of view, but also from his wife who's left behind, as well as his 4-year-old son. So it looks at it from all 3 points.
So let's just get this right. He's a German American.
Hmm.
He feels he needs to enlist and fight in the war
Hmm.
for his country,
Right.
America.
Right.
However, instead of fighting the Japanese, was it?
Yeah, because see,
Who they'd
Japanese is what
taken,
bombed Pearl Harbor, so he figured that's who he's going to go fight, and instead he ends up in the European front, and he ends up in Germany.
fighting against who
People that are
he
more
is.
like him than different from him, right? Yeah,
Wow. Where
yeah.
did you get the idea from, Terry?
My grandfather fought in World War II. We're of German heritage, though we've lived in the United States for generations. And he said to me one time, I always wondered if the person on the other side of my gun was a cousin.
Oh, wow. Whew.
And that stuck with me for that was years. I was a teenager when he said that to me, but when it was time to, my mind said, okay, we're going to write now. That was one of the things that just kept sticking with me was there's a story there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. That reminds me of that film with, what's his name? He's a sniper, a German sniper. And the story's about him and the other German sniper who are both trying to kill each other.
Right.
Two huge, I don't know what it's called. Enemy Gates. Is it called Enemy Gates?
I don't know. I don't think I've seen that one.
Oh my gosh, it's two major film stars. I'll have to find
Okay.
out the name and send you
Super.
it. But it's their story and it's who they are and why they're doing what they're doing, but it also makes them think, why are we doing this?
Why are
What's
we
the
doing what
point?
we're doing? Right.
Yeah,
Right.
which is what everyone thinks. What is war?
Yeah.
Why do we have war? What did it solve?
Right. Right. Yeah. So
Wow.
that's what that one was about.
So we have the Ukrainian war, Russia.
Yeah.
We have Germany and America.
Yeah.
Um, Daughters of Green Mountain Gap. Is there a war in this, or are we
No
going somewhere
wars.
different? Ooh,
No
please
wars.
tell.
So I think wars sometimes it's such a natural backdrop, right?
Mm,
Because there's the angst. You don't have to like create it. Like what's the problem? War. It's very straightforward. In Daughters of Green Mountain Gap, the problem is like modern versus traditional. As things start to change, do you change along with it? Can you change along with it? Should you change along with it? All of those questions. And I look at it in the medical field. So my main character, her name is Maggie, and she is what is known as a granny woman. In the North Carolina mountains, a granny woman is like a healer, an herbalist. She does the roots and the herbs and all of those things. But there's this like little bit of mountain magic
So
where
say, is she a witch?
sort of. So granny women have that characteristic where they can do things that don't make sense to a modern Western mind. Like
Hmm.
how can you talk to a wart and have it fall off? How can you whisper to a baby that's in utero and is upside down and get them to flip over? How can you blow in someone's mouth and the thrush just disappears? Like none of that makes any sense, right? Like it doesn't make any logical sense, and yet it happens. And so I did some research, found out about this whole idea of granny women, and Maggie immediately was born. She started talking to me. I knew that I had to tell her story. And yeah, just kind of like evolved from there.
How did you learn about the granny women?
Yes, so lots of research. I love research. I tell everyone I'm a research junkie. But it all started because I had a wart on my thumb. And my primary care doctor, I went in just for a regular checkup and I said, hey, let's get rid of this thing. And she said, oh, I can't do that. We'll have to send you to a specialist. And I thought, for a wart? So I just went to the pharmacy and got a patch. The thing fell off, no big deal. But I was talking to my brother about it, complaining, I can't believe she wouldn't do this. And he said, why didn't you get someone to talk it off? And I thought, what are you talking about? I am the gullible person in my family. So people often tell me stories. And then when I fall hook, line, and sinker for them, I hear about it for years. We get around at Christmas time. It's like, do you remember that time that Teri, blah, 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 So I didn't believe him at all. And I waited until we got off the phone. And then I do what I do, which is I got on Google and I thought, talk off warts. Because I knew it wasn't real, but I don't know. I just had to know. And lo and behold, there are people that can talk to a wart and it will fall off. And I thought, this can't be real. So, of course, I have to keep researching. And the more I research, the more I find. And then it leads me to granny women in North Carolina. And yeah, yeah. So all because I had a wart.
Wow.
Which, when
Wow.
people say to me, where do you get your stories? It's like,
There you go. There you go. So, what you've done in all your books, which is it's gone through all three books now, is you don't talk about two main characters, male and female. You talk about generation, a family
yeah.
generation in Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, in Enemy Like Me, and of course your new one, Daughters of Green Mountain Gap. It's about a generation of women, a family. Why do you delve deep into the history of your characters like that?
I think there is nothing better than seeing a topic from different positions. And what better way than to have those people be of different generations? Because how I see something is different than how my children see something, which is different than how my grandchildren
Things
are going to see
change
something.
throughout
Right,
history.
right. And it's a very natural reason for why three people who are essentially grown up in the same area within the same family, they naturally see things differently. And I love that idea, and I think it lends itself so well to the exploration of a topic from a lot of different points of view, and those points of view make sense. It would make
Mm,
sense why a teenage girl would see the Russia and Ukraine conflict differently than her grandmother, who remembers vividly
what
living.
they went through
Yes,
in
yes.
history.
Whereas the teenager has no recollection of it. I first happened upon that idea thinking about my own life. I would go to my grandparents' home, and they would be, talking about the depression, and I would think, oh my gosh, are we still talking about this? That was ages ago. It wasn't ages ago, but it felt ages ago to me
Yeah.
because I never had to collect tinfoil. I didn't have to do all of this stuff. And so to me, it was like, why are we still talking about it? That idea, I wasn't a bad teenager. I wasn't a bad kid. I just didn't understand, like, it didn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
And I now, as an adult, look back and think, well, of course it still meant something to them. It had only been 25 years. And to me, as an 18-year-old, 25 years was like forever. And now, as a 60-year-old, 25 years is nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Wow. So what are you working on now, Terry?
So I'm working on something so totally different that I tell people that I'm either like a genius or I'm committing author suicide.
Oh,
So once
wow.
once we put it out, we'll find out. It is a contemporary humor women's fiction. Um, it is one point of view. Um, and it is present tense, which is so different than what I've done. But it is a humorous look at menopause. And it's about a woman who's in her 50s. She's going through menopause. She has recently separated. She's trying to do the dating
You're
scene
doing a story
again.
about me, aren't you? That's what it
No,
is. I'm 50. I'm going through menopause. I've just separated. I've started dating. You are.
no, I'm not. But
Wow.
what's funny is that this is a story that women understand, because even if you've never been separated, there isn't a woman alive who isn't going to go through, is going through, or has been through menopause. And
Mm,
it is this thing that hangs out there. And this is kind of a humorous look so that we can learn to kind of laugh at what's going on in our bodies that we cannot control. I mean, there's nothing you can do about the fact that you look for your glasses for 22 minutes and they're sitting on top of your head, right? Or that you go to pull on a pair of pants and you realize you cannot get them snapped around your middle anymore, and what has happened? Or you lift your arm and you realize you've got the bingo wings going on over here, and it's like, where did this come from, right? And the hot flashes, and you wake up in the night and your bed is soaking wet, and it's like, what's going on? it's
mm,
it's a humorous look at a woman who's trying to go about living life while dealing with all of those things. And the idea came about because I read a book as a kid called Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret by Judy Blume. And Margaret is going through puberty, right? And she's all worried about all of the puberty things, like will her breasts grow, and will she ever get a period, and all of those things, right? And I thought to myself, whatever happened to Margaret? I mean, once all that happened to her, the book ended. And all of a sudden it was like, her name is now Peg, and she's going through menopause. And then it just kind of happened. So
wow. Wow.
very
It's
different.
amazing, isn't it? When something hits you and it's like, it could be a character talking. It's like,
Yeah.
this is my story. You have to write about me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm working on something at the moment. Okay, I'll work on you next. But they won't
Yes.
leave you alone.
Right.
And
Well,
you
so
know,
Peg has been bothering me for 3 books.
there you go. You know that it has to be done.
Yeah.
Not just to get a peace of mind and for it to go away, but because intuitively
Yeah.
you know that is your next book.
It is my next book, and I don't know that this is a genre that I will stick to. I really love the historical fiction idea and looking at stories that haven't been told.
Mhm.
I like that,
Mm.
but this character Peg would never have fit into historical
One of
fiction.
those,
You
yeah.
couldn't have done a humorous look at menopause in 1890. I mean, it
No,
just wasn't going to be a thing, right?
no, no.
So yeah, I tell people though that I'm not really a historical fiction author. I'm a character driven fiction author. I love characters. I love
You
character
do.
arcs. I love developing characters. And
You
so
do.
if you enjoy reading a good character, then you'll enjoy my books, whether I set them in the 1890s or I set them in 2024. It isn't going to matter to you. So,
Yeah, I mean, people that are watching now, our regular viewers, I'm recommending these books, and I don't read a lot of books, and I don't recommend books very often. I talk to a lot of authors, but recommendations only if I actually know the book. Um, Terry is an amazing author. These
thank
books
you.
are fantastic. The stories are very different from your usual drama, historical drama. They're very thought provoking, very emotional. They really make you feel. And that's what I love about them.
Yeah,
And so I'm highly recommending all three books. I
thank
hope
you.
you go out and go on to, is it terrymbrown.com?
That is, yep, my name, TeriMBrown.com. Head on over. You'll see all the icons for my social media. You can sign up for my newsletter, the whole thing. Reach out to me on my contact page.
And before we go, you
Yeah.
also started a podcast. Tell
Yes,
me
I
about that.
did. Yeah, so it's called Online for Authors. And I realized that as a new author, it was very difficult to find a place to be heard, to be seen. So I am encouraging new authors to send me their book, in digital format. I read it as long as I feel like it's a good fit, like it's something I feel comfortable talking about. Then I go ahead and sign them up, and we do something like this where I just talk to them about their book. And my encouragement for them is to then take this and use it in your social media and get it out there and let people see who you are. And because people don't just buy books, they buy books by authors. And so, you
You
know,
sell yourself before you
yes,
sell your book.
right. And they want to know about you. They
Yeah,
do. They want to know, did you wake up in the middle of the night and write a scene? They want to know like what do you drink when you're doing, like what is your drink? What are your snacks? Where do
yeah,
you write? You know,
yeah,
do you,
exactly.
they want to know all those things, which amazed me at first. It was like, why would you care about that? But they do. And so if you can get yourself onto platforms where you're allowed to talk about yourself, then that's excellent. And so I wanted that for authors. So
It's the same as reason I did Behind the Pen and
yeah,
Creative Inc. and my radio show Author Assist. It's to give that platform um,
yeah,
to authors to not just talk about their book, but talk about the art of writing.
yeah.
Talk
Their
about the
their
research that
process.
goes behind. Talk about how long it takes to write a frigging book, how much
Yeah,
it costs to write a frigging book.
yeah.
Readers don't realize that. Readers don't know what we go through and how much we go through and how much it costs to actually put this beautiful book out there for them to read. And it's important that they do know about the
I actually had something happen the other day. So Daughters of Green Mountain Gap um, had not come out yet, but I had a few of my, advanced reader copy,
yeah.
and she finished it. She loved it. And then the next thing she said is, and when will your next one be out? And it's like, I don't even have this one out yet. You know, like whoa. And you do. I think that a lot of times readers don't understand. You don't just pop out a book in an afternoon. I mean, I know you can read one in 2 days, but it takes me longer than that to get it to you, right? So,
Exactly.
so it's kind of crazy because people do. It's like, so when will your next one be out? And it's like, oh, look, I'm still launching this one. I don't, you know,
Exactly.
yeah, it's
Well,
crazy.
Terry, it's been wonderful chatting with you again.
Thank you.
introducing you to my viewers. I hope they go out and check out your books and go to your
Thank you.
website, have a watch of the podcast. Hopefully, I shall be on there soon.
Yes, I'm
Um,
I'm I'm looking forward to reading and getting you on.
Oh, lovely. That would be really nice. I don't do a lot of promotion of myself as an author because I'm too busy promoting other authors. But so yeah, that would make a nice change being on the other side.
Super.
Thank you again for being a guest on Creative Inc. And I wish you all the best with your release of your new book and the others that you write.
Thank you so much.